The World Parkinson's Congress is an event that's held every couple of years to really celebrate the work that's being done in Parkinson's, to bring together people who have Parkinson's with clinicians, researchers, people working in the field. It's a really, really exciting event. I went to the last one in Portland, and I have the great honour of being an ambassador at the one in 2019 in Kyoto, Japan.
So that is why you were selected to be an ambassador for the WPC. So I look forward to working with you.
My name is Eli Pollard. I'm the Executive Director of the World Parkinson Coalition. I was hired in 2004 when the organization was just being launched, and I had the good fortune of being interviewed by Dr. Stanley Fawn, our founder. And he was looking for someone to help him in the effort to basically build and launch the first ever World Parkinson Congress. And at the time we had no idea if it would actually work or take off, but with good fortune and a tremendous amount of work, the first Congress was successful, and we continued. And it's interesting, I didn't have at the time any contacts in my life, or friends or family who lived with Parkinson's. I didn't really know a lot about Parkinson's, but there was something about creating a World Parkinson Congress that seemed really, I mean, not only a personal challenge, but just very positive and very innovative and very just common sense in a way, because bringing people with Parkinson's into a meeting on Parkinson's seemed logical. I was a little surprised that it hadn't already been done, so it seemed like an interesting and exciting place to be. Wow, that's an interesting question. I think running a nonprofit organization has certain just day-to-day logistics you just have to do, whether that's filing papers or working on running the office. That's just integrated into every day. But I think when it comes to the actual planning the Congress, I remember my interview with Dr. Fawn when I told him in my interview, I don't know a lot about Parkinson's, and he started laughing and he said, you don't have to know a lot about Parkinson's to do this job. He's like, your job is going to be to organize us. He's like, the doctors are much harder to organize than the Congress. And so I think a tremendous amount of my job is just coordinating people, whether that's the program committee and making sure that they're moving forward on their plans for the program design, or whether that's the communication committee or the advocates committee. Is just keeping people moving along and motivated and keeping them on task. And we have around 110 committee members in around 35 countries, so it really is just constantly managing people. And all of our committee members are volunteers, so people do this really out of the goodness of their heart because they believe it's the right thing to do. So it's also about motivating people and thanking them often for their time and their effort, because these are often amazing people who could be doing 10 other things. So encouraging them to keep the WPC front and center is always on my plate as well. That's a good question. The biggest challenge I faced so far, I think it's an ongoing challenge. And you know, when you have a Congress where you're bringing all different people together, you're bringing neuroscientists and clinicians and nurses, PT, OT, social work, speech, and people with Parkinson's, you know, you have a Congress, and every country or region of the world is different. And so where it's easy in maybe one region of the world to get patient advocates to attend the Congress, in another part of the world that's a challenge. And so the important part of the Congress is the balance. We don't want to have all neuroscientists or all people with Parkinson's or all nurses. The thing that makes the WPC so spectacular is that unique balance. And so I would say that's kind of our ongoing challenge, is to ensure that the numbers are good in all the different registration categories, because that's where the magic happens, and that's where that cross-pollinating and exchange of ideas takes place, and that's really important. That's an ongoing challenge for us. What am I proudest of? I mean, I think just seeing that the Congress was accepted by the community and embraced by the community. You know, when we had that first World Parkinson Congress, actually in my interview with Dr. Fawn in 2004, he said to me, before I was even hired, he said, you know, this is a very unique meeting. We don't know even if it's going to work. I mean, having people with Parkinson's sitting next to doctors and researchers, this sort of mix, maybe the community's not ready for it. And he said, so we don't really know until we have the meeting whether or not the community is ready. And he said, so if the community's not ready, it just means this will only happen once, and in 2 years, you know, you won't have a job. He joked. But I think there was definitely an unknown. I mean, when we had this first Congress, we really, truly didn't know if people would come and what the turnout would be and what the experience would be. Because it's not just about getting people there, it's obviously about the science and the engagement and the communication and cross-pollination. And so that first Congress, which was held pre-social media, right? There was no Facebook and no Twitter. Everything was about phone calls and emails and getting people to come in a very short time for a World Congress. And with nearly 3,200 delegates from 56 countries, we knew after that first Congress that it was successful and that we would do it again. And I think there was even that second one, people still had doubts, you know, can you really do a second one? Was the first one just a fluke? And so when the second one was also very well attended and the science was very good and people came away with good memories and learned a tremendous amount, that was a huge relief. So there was a great success in just seeing that what the product sort of that we created was meaningful and valuable and that people really wanted to participate. I have a few favorite Congress memories. I think, you know, the most recent Congress memory, probably seeing Tom Isaac sing on stage, climb multiple stages actually. He sang more than once, Climb Every Mountain. I think he sang a few songs, and I love seeing him on stage and singing, and making people laugh, which he loved to do. I think one of my memories going back to the very first World Parkinson Congress was talking to a person with Parkinson's, and I asked him, you know, how's the meeting going for you? And he said, you know, this has been a really hard time for me. He said, this year, this recent time period in my life. And he said, I've been really struggling with my Parkinson's, and I'm feeling very alone right now. And he said, but when I came to this meeting, it was the first time I got to meet scientists, and the first time I saw this huge community of people who are working for my disease who I didn't even know existed, because I never got to see them and meet them and hear them talk about their research. And he said, there are so many young scientists presenting research on the posters, and they're on my team, and I didn't even know that they existed until this Congress. He's like, so I have a great deal of hope right now, hope that I didn't have last week. So I've always loved that memory, because I think that's really the feeling that a lot of people walk away with after a Congress. So many things. I think taking the WPC to Japan for the first time is very exciting. You know, we are a World Parkinson Congress, cannot just focus on North America and Europe. But I think that, you know, different parts of the world look at Parkinson's in a different way. And I think that Japan has its own unique way of dealing with Parkinson's. And the community, there's still some, while the community, the Japan Parkinson Disease Association is a very engaged organization, there are still many people in Japan who don't want to be recognized as having Parkinson's and don't want to talk about it. And it's still somewhat taboo to talk about Parkinson's in not just Japan, but in various countries in Asia. And so I think there's an opportunity for the WPC to help open some doors of communication. And I also think there's a great opportunity for our friends coming from outside Japan to learn from our Japanese colleagues. The scientists are doing amazing work. The clinicians are coming up with wonderful treatments that may not exist outside of Japan. And the patient community in Japan works differently. And I think we have an opportunity to learn from each other and take away some new inspirational ideas and grow the community even more.
It's really exciting. Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, Emma. That's great.
If you're interested in attending the World Parkinson's Congress in Kyoto in Japan in 2019, you can either tweet me at ems_Lawton or write something in the messages here on YouTube, and I'll come back to you. I can also add you to a mailing list which has all the key dates for tickets and things like that.